have to object to us having so much information go out about my personal information in that jury questionnaire. Do you not think that was a problem?
What personal information?
The state versus Lori Daybell.
It's the name of the case.
People are just going to Google it, and then we're going to have the same exact problem we had getting a jury for that case. We're going to have the same exact problem.
Are you done? Are you just going to keep...
Your Honor?
Yes.
I have to ask that you would recuse yourself from the obvious personal bias that you have against me.
Will Lori lash out again in court today? She spoke out ahead of her sentencing. We are previewing the cult mom's court appearance happening in just a few short hours. And a closer look at killer Kohberger's family as more new information keeps pouring in from the Idaho student murders. Plus, Erik Menendez undergoes surgery. The Menendez brothers' parole board hearing scheduled next month. Could Erik potentially not go back to prison? Also this hour, Shanda Vander Ark back in court this morning asking for a new trial. Her former attorney expected to testify. Could this tip the scales for the child killer? It's all next, right here on Opening Statements. And welcome to Opening Statements. I'm Kelly Craft, your host for this hour. Julie Grant has the day off. And just like in an actual trial, we are getting you ready for what's ahead in court. So grab a cup of coffee. It's time for the Daily Docket.
When you come at my daughter with a knife, I have to stop you. Right. And unfortunately, I went too far. I choked her out, and then when the blood started coming out of her nose, I stopped. But it was too late. It was too late.
In Florida, closing arguments expected in the in-law massacre sentencing for confessed killer Shelby Neely. Will the jury recommend life or death? That begins at 10 a.m. Eastern. Also, in Michigan, convicted killer Shanda Vander Ark is back in court today. She wants a new trial. Court gets underway at 10 a.m. Eastern. We will go in live when that gets started. And in Arizona, cult mom Lori Daybell's sentencing. That starts at noon Eastern. And that is our top story this morning. Lori Daybell, set to be sentenced in just a few short hours for murder conspiracy in the 2019 death of her husband, Charles Vallow, as well as the attempted murder of her niece's ex-husband, Brandon Boudreaux. She was all smiles, as seen here, holding up a picture of her and her husband, convicted killer Chad Daybell. Now, this was taken during her final interview with KTVK's True Crime Arizona, right ahead of her sentencing. Court TV's crime and justice correspondent Matt Johnson has more on what we can expect today.
We're here at the Ada County Courthouse where Lori Daybell was convicted of killing her children, JJ Vallow and Tylee Ryan, and convicted of conspiring to kill her current husband's first wife, Tammy Daybell. On Friday, a judge in Phoenix, Arizona will sentence the doomsday cult mom for a murder that happened months before her children were killed.
And so, as far back as June 9th, we're already hearing that Alex and Lori would like to not just get rid of Charles, but kill him.
We learned in this trial that Charles and I were obviously having marital problems. Regardless of what was happening in our marriage at the time, on July 11th, this was self-defense.
An Arizona jury convicted her in April of conspiracy to commit murder of her fourth husband, Charles Vallow. And in June, they found her guilty of conspiracy of attempted murder of her niece's former husband, Brandon Boudreaux.
We, the jury, duly impaneled and sworn in the above entitled action upon our oaths, do find the defendant, Lori Daybell, as to the crime of count 1, conspiracy to commit first-degree murder occurring on or about October 2nd, 2019, as follows. Guilty.
And as you know, Vallow is already serving life behind bars here in the state of Idaho. Come Friday, she could add 2 additional life sentences behind bars in Arizona. That's the very latest from the Ada County Courthouse. I'm Matt Johnson. I'll send it back to you.
And here to discuss, criminal defense attorneys Joe Tamburino and David Bruno. Happy Friday to both of you gentlemen. Thank you so much for being with us on opening statements. Okay, let's talk about this case. And we want to play a little soundbite that we have from Lori in regard to maybe giving us some kind of insight as to what we can expect today. She did speak with KTVK in Arizona. We're going to play that, and then I'll get your reaction on the other side.
This all ends on Friday. Sentence, this is done. It's really the end of your connection with the outside world. How do you feel about this ending?
I don't feel like it's an ending of anything. I was convicted in the media long before I ever went to trial.
All right, Joe, I'm going to start with you. You just heard what Lori had to say. Is this kind of an indication as what we might see from her today?
Good morning. Thanks for having me on. Yeah, I mean, of course, she's going to pull some antics, but this is the end of it. It's been 6 years now since we've had to go through the Chad and Lori Daybell. She has occupied and sucked up so much time. She's been convicted now for a number of charges. She will never see the light of day outside of prison, so she's absolutely wrong. This is the end today. And yes, we might see some antics. She might ask the judge to recuse himself again like she's done before, because certainly she knows how to alienate the judges. There's no doubt about that. But this ends today.
David, what do you think?
Oh, I agree. This is the final chapter. I remember years ago covering this story when we were looking for those two children, and her and Daybell were in Hawaii vacationing. And this is just the final chapter. And finally, too, because, you know, we just saw the Kohberger sentencing and how the impact statements come out, and then the defendant has the right to speak. He did not speak. This is going to be a different story today. I expect her to, you know, say what she feels. Once again, that's one thing about this particular defendant. She has never held back on what she has thought and what she says. And we got the clip of the recusal attempt on this particular judge. Now it's the judge's turn. And the judge, I think, is going to unleash on this defendant because he has the right to do that in his sentencing, just like we saw the Kohberger judge do.
Yeah, he, for the most part, has been extremely patient with Lori as she has represented herself and had a lot of things to say and kind of guiding her along in the process. You know, she did speak out at her last sentencing in Idaho. We do have a clip of that. I'm going to play that and we'll talk about it on the other side.
I was told by Jesus that I needed to go back and complete things that I had covenanted or promised to do before I was born. This caused me a lot of distress because I knew heaven was my real home, and I only wanted to be there. I was free from pain, emotional and physical. But then I was shown how I would help my children and others in the future. So ultimately, I did agree to go back to my body.
Okay, David, I'll start with you this time. That was her last sentencing. We heard her going on and on, you know, about stuff that she seems to believe in, and maybe we'll see more of that today.
Yeah, I mean, there's a difference between belief and insanity. And at one point, she was incompetent. Let's not forget about this. I mean, Lori Daybell has mental health problems, and we've seen the ups and downs, and it's gone in and out, and with treatment and non-treatment and things like that. And on this particular case, she was initially not found competent, and it was a pre-trial hearing that we heard from multiple experts and found her to be competent, different from insanity. We have all of these things that have popped up in this particular case, and I expect some of the similar statements to be heard today from Daybell.
Joe, during a statement in allocution, it's really a time for a defendant to express remorse for what happened. Do you think we'll hear any of that from her today?
No, that's never going to happen because David's right. She does have mental health problems, and she was found to be incompetent. That means she couldn't stand trial, at least at that point in time, because of her mental health situation. But this is a person who's never going to show remorse, never going to say she's sorry. She has a justification for all of her actions. Now, what the clip that you just showed really is the tip of the iceberg of how she's justified so many things based on her religious beliefs, based on she knows who's light and dark, based on on some type of idea of the afterlife and how, God has spoken to her. So we'll probably hear the same thing, but we will not hear any type of an apology or remorse.
These arguments that she has gotten in with the judge, we have a clip of that. Let's go ahead and play it.
If you're going to introduce how you have great character and good character, we're going to have a short hearing on what evidence that they can bring in to rebut that character, which could include being convicted of 4 murders. So
and would you
talk to your advisory counsel during the break. And
you don't need to yell at me either.
I'm at you, okay?
Yeah, you are, and you do not need to talk to me that way. I'm very courteous. I'm very courteous to you.
No, you have been nothing near courteous to me during the course of these proceedings.
Joe, I was sitting there for the one trial for Charles Vallow, and she was getting in these back and forths with the judge, talking about, she wanted to talk about how she's a good person, her good character. Explain that kind of briefly. If she started talking about that, that really opens the door.
Yes, it was so ridiculous, and it really goes to show you how even if you have nothing to lose as a defendant, still, please get an attorney, accept a public defender. No one would even think of raising character evidence in a case like this. Because as we all know, under the evidentiary rules in every state and the federal government, if you open character, if you say, I'm a good person, that you could drive a truck through that from on the prosecution side, because you then get to bring up everything that shows bad character. It's ridiculous that she even thought that would be some type of a winning argument. But obviously she thinks she's smarter than everyone else in the room, and she doesn't have an attorney, or at least doesn't listen to any advice.
Yeah, David, when she would walk into the courtroom, she would be all smiles. She would turn around and look at everyone, look at counsel's table on the other side and smile, and just like she kind of owned the courtroom.
Yeah, it's clear she loves the attention. She loved it from the beginning, even in these pro se matters where she's standing up on her own. We've seen those emotions that have come out, and she doesn't think that it's the end, but unfortunately, it is the end for you. And that's going to be the final chapter. I mean, she has life sentence after life sentence after life sentence, and then we're going to add 2 more on top of that. And it's going to be the final chapter in this book, unfortunately, for her.
Yeah, unbelievable circumstances. Gentlemen, thank you so much. Both of you are sticking around today. And coming up on opening statements.
You're coming from Washington State University? And you're going where? Oh. You're going to be going to Pennsylvania. Oh, okay.
We're taking a closer look at Bryan Kohberger's family dynamics as his mom and sister make a rare appearance this past week at his sentencing. Plus, Erik Menendez in the hospital undergoing surgery. His parole board hearing less than a month away. Will he go back to prison?
I'm Vinny Politan. Welcome to Closing Arguments.
What's happening here?
It's unreal. Let me show you exactly what happened.
Closing Arguments with Vinny Politan. Tonight at 8/7 Central. Only on Court TV.
Donna Adelson is facing charges of murder, the death of her former son-in-law.
This is terrible. Now that Donna has turned into a defendant, what's next for the Adelson clan?
The Matriarch Mastermind Murder Trial. Live coverage this August on Court TV.
Trust us, we wanted that to be the case. We've looked for a link, and we have not found one. Not one.
We have never, to this date, found a single connection between him and any of the 4 victims or the 2 surviving roommates.
Bryan Kohberger remains a trending topic as more investigation details are revealed. The latest mugshot of the now convicted killer was released on Thursday, just a day after Kohberger was sentenced to 4 consecutive life terms. Within hours of Kohberger's sentencing, hundreds of documents were released by the police, which included Kohberger's interview with the police department after the murders were committed. When asked about the murders, Kohberger said, "I watched the news." He then said he was not sure why Detective Darren Gilbertson looked familiar, but stated he had a familiar face and looked like someone he used to know. Later on in the interview, Gilbertson asked Kohberger if he knew of the murders, to which Kohberger replied, "Of course." When he was asked to elaborate, He said it was the incident we had been investigating for how long has it been? We're asking, was Kohberger too confident during the interrogation? Why don't we go ahead and bring in our guests? Criminal defense attorneys Joe Tamburino, David Bruno, as well as parenting and family relationship expert Dr. Sue Kornbleith. Sue, I'm going to start with you. Let's talk about, was he too confident during that interrogation? What's your take? What do you think about his responses? Kind of analyze that for us.
Oh, good morning, everyone. Good morning, Kelly. I think, he thinks he can outsmart anyone. And so, yeah, probably he was overconfident in there. He was lying to protect himself. And at that point, he could, possibly believe that what he was saying was actually true. This guy, just look at the eyes, Kelly, look at the eyes. It's empty. So he will do and say anything to get away with whatever he needs to do to try to get away with murder. And his overconfidence is from the fact that he just believes that he is more important than anybody else. And that is what he shows the world. He showed it this week at the sentencing, and he probably showed it when he was being interviewed as well.
Joe, what do you think?
Oh, absolutely. I agree with that. He does think he's smarter than everyone else. But, here's where he's not at all smart. And that's talking with the police without getting the advice of counsel first. This is one of those great situations. We see it all the time. We talk about it here on Court TV all the time about people thinking that they could give a good statement or a helpful statement to an investigator without the assistance of counsel. It almost never works, but it happens again and again and again, whether we're talking about some theft case or obviously a quadruple murder. But yes, he always thinks he's the smartest person. And unfortunately, we're never going to know why he did this. That's the question on everyone's mind. And he doesn't have to tell us. But, I agree. He does think he's the smartest person. But obviously, he made so many grievous errors.
David, what's your take?
Yeah, my take is that confidence that we just heard from Kohberger in that statement is the result of his actions that he took to cover up his actions. We're starting to learn even more about the cover-up now. He wiped his phone from apps. He shut down his phone before the murder. He cleaned that car to the point where they could not find any forensics. And we now know that that was bloody because of the crime scene and all of the wounds that we're hearing from the victims and what he did on that particular night. So think about all of the actions and the things that he did leading up to that particular point in time when he's now speaking to law enforcement about these murders. And he believed that he had to sell his story. So his confidence comes from his actions leading up to it and the need to sell that story that he had nothing to do with this in the face of law enforcement that had the authority to bring him down.
Questions still remain in the investigation, including a motive. It's still a mystery, but there's no doubt that the families connected to this crime will be forever linked.
I will call you what you are. Sociopath, psychopath, murderer.
You are so beyond human. You're definitely a demon from hell.
He is a hollow vessel, something less than human.
You're nothing. May you continue to live your life in misery.
The victim impact statements easily stole the headlines after sentencing. While the world focused on Kohberger, his family was also in that same courtroom. His mother, along with his sister, seen here leaving the courthouse, both emotional, obviously, as one victim after another pointed their pain toward Kohberger. Kohberger's mom was seen crying, while Maddie Mogen's father spoke about his drug addiction. So we're asking impressions of the Kohberger family throughout this investigation. Sue, when you take a look at some of those photographs, the still images that we have, there's quite a resemblance between Bryan Kohberger and his sister. It's as if when you're taking a look at the sister, you basically are seeing him.
Yeah, well, they very much look alike here. Okay, I think that this has been a tremendous amount of stress for both sides. In terms of his family dynamic, look, there was tons of stuff going on in Bryan's life as a young person. He was in and out of rehab. He was using heroin. He transformed his whole self into somebody else. There is no doubt in my mind that the parents knew that he was struggling. The thing that I zoned into, and I'm wondering if a lot of other people, is that the father was not present in that courtroom for the sentencing. Now, maybe the father knew the whole time that he had committed this crime. Maybe he didn't. Maybe he was in denial. I don't know. But the father not showing up in court does lead to a lot of speculation of what he did know and what he didn't know. You know, he rode in that car with Bryan all the way back to Pennsylvania, almost shoulder to shoulder in that little car. I can't believe that there was no signs of anything from Bryan while that drive was going on. And the mother could actually be in denial herself. I mean, no mother wants to come to terms with the fact that her own son could commit such murders like this. The sister, there's reports that she, or it was the other sister, I'm not sure, saw him cleaning out the car. So they're in their own pain, okay? But at the end of the day, both sides are in tremendous pain. I have never in my life seen or heard impact statements like I did this week in court. I mean, it brought tears to my eyes.
Yeah, it was really emotional, hard to watch at times. Let's go ahead and play. This is going to be the stop that police made on him, and the father is in the car.
He was right up on the back end of that van, pulled you over for tailgating. Is this your car? Okay, cool. Where are you headed?
Well, we're coming from WSU.
So you're coming from Washington State University?
Yeah.
And you're going where? Oh.
We're going to be going to Pennsylvania.
Oh, okay.
And then we also have Corporal Brett Payne. So what was said here, he said that I asked Kohberger if he and his father made any stops along their way back to Pennsylvania. He told me they visited Colorado, but the main goal was to just drive. He then told a story about seeing an unmarked police car near Kansas City, speed up behind him, catch up to another vehicle, turn on its emergency lights, then drive away. Kohberger thought this was strange and was unsure why it actually occurred. Really interesting, Joe, to just kind of get these details and see him being stopped, see what the officers had to say afterwards.
Yes, and I agree that there's something going on with the family. They must know something because obviously there's been communication. And what I'd really like to know, and based on media reports about Kohberger's, 3-4 hour conversations with his mother almost every day from jail. That's been reported while he's been in custody. He literally gets on the phone with his mother for hours almost every day. Now, all jails, from what my experience is, record phone calls. I'd love to know what's on those conversations. I mean, it's hours and hours of conversations with his mother every day since this supposedly, since it happened. And that would be very insightful to see what's going on in his mind. As soon as he gets to prison, he's going to be in a very secure facility. I doubt he'll even come close to having any type of phone time that he has in the local jail. But it would be really interesting to see what he talks to his mother about.
Yeah, it really would. David, it always surprises me that these calls are recorded, so they eventually do become public. We do usually get to hear what they were talking about.
Oh, sure. I mean, we've covered cases where the prosecutor is able to use those recorded statements in the trial themselves. I mean, these defendants, they're in jail. They're given the notifications too. This call's recorded oftentimes, but one of the striking things that I've been learning as I'm getting more information after the sentencing is the violence and the victim's injuries, especially Kaylee. Kaylee was stabbed 34 times and her face was unrecognizable. There were defensive wounds on most of the victims as well. And there's even a report that he may have sat in a chair with a blood spatter or a blood stain pattern in a chair where he may have paused and just reflected, which is just questions on questions on questions still that we have even after this sentence. And I know that the questions are going to continue to come on this case with some of the things we're learning from the hundreds of pages of documents that we're going through.
Yeah, the other day, about 300 were released, and now we're hearing more and more are going to be released in the next coming days and months. All right, all three of you are sticking around. We have more to come this hour on opening statements.
I passed the bar in 1986. This is the worst case I've ever handled. It's not even, I've handled cases with serial murders. This is the worst case I've ever handled.
Shanda Vander Ark's defense attorney expected to defend himself this morning as the convicted killer asks for a new trial. But first, the Menendez brothers' parole board hearing is less than a month away, and Erik Menendez is in the hospital undergoing surgery. Could he stay out of prison? Welcome back to Opening Statements. I'm Kelly Craft in this morning for Julie Grant. Now we turn to the Menendez brothers. Erik, in particular, his daughter posting to social media that her dad had his second surgery due to complications with kidney stones. TMZ reports that California Governor Gavin Newsom is reviewing Erik's medical condition to determine if a prison furlough could be in play. Is it possible Erik may never go back to prison? A judge recently resentenced the brothers to 50 years to life, making them immediately eligible for parole. Their parole board hearing is less than a month away. So how did we get here? Court TV's crime and justice correspondent Matt Johnson reports.
It's been 30 years since Lyle and Erik Menendez were first tried for the murders of their parents, Jose and Kitty Menendez.
I ran around and shot my mom.
Where did you shoot her?
The street door and I shot her close.
I was just firing. As I went into the room, I just started firing.
Prosecutors claim the brothers killed in cold blood for money, but Erik and Lyle claim that they acted in self-defense after suffering years of sexual abuse.
What do you believe was the originating cause of you and your brother ultimately winding up shooting your parents?
Me telling Lyle that,
It was you telling Lyle what?
my dad had been molesting me.
The 1993 trial ended in a mistrial with the jurors deadlocked. 2 years later, the brothers were found guilty and sentenced to life without parole. Now the case is back in the spotlight, thanks to the Netflix series, The Menendez Brothers.
Everyone asks why we killed our parents. Maybe now people can understand the truth.
The documentary details the brothers' claims of sexual assault. Lyle Menendez also spoke on the Rosie O'Donnell podcast, saying he was not aware of the accusations against their father from a member of the band Menudo.
I did not know Roy and didn't know the fact that he had been raped by my father and was another victim. Came out through a documentary investigation they were doing on the band separately from anything related to Erik and I.
Due to the refocused attention on the case,
let's go ahead and bring in our guests to discuss this. Criminal defense attorneys Joe Tamburino and David Bruno. Okay, David, what do you think? Will Erik go back to prison?
Well, first on the medical issue, look, there are defendants in custody that have medical issues all of the time. And it is normal for them to either get treatment in the facility or to be transferred to other facilities while still in custody. So not every surgery requires a medical furlough, which would gain access to other hospitals outside the institution of the corrections system. So that's number one, as he's probably being able to be treated for what he's going through right now, unless there are some other dire issues that require a medical furlough. Next is going to be the parole decision. So the parole board is going to have this decision. It's August 21st, 22nd. That goes to Governor Newsom as to the recommendation. And then Governor Newsom will have to decide within 90 days whether to follow that recommendation, reject that recommendation, or modify that recommendation. So it could be possible, depending on how long he needs this treatment, that he never goes back to that facility if the parole board recommends release and Governor Newsom approves that release under his authority.
Joe, what do you think?
Your question was, is he going to go back to prison? Yes, he's going to go back to prison. I don't think the parole board is going to recommend that he be released. And even if they did recommend that, Governor Newsom has the power to reject that and keep him in prison. And we have to remember that Governor Newsom is a likely contender to be the next president of the United States from the Democratic Party. I don't think he's going to want on his jacket that he released the Menendez brothers and didn't do anything to stop the parole board for their release. So there's a lot of factors going on here, but I see him going back to prison.
Now, the Menendez family, they've been very supportive of the release. And let's take a listen to the cousin reacting to the resentencing.
It was very moving. I think everybody in the courtroom was moved by that. They've said those words to me personally before. That was not the first time that I had heard them take full accountability for their actions, for the effect that it had on my life, and express that. So I'm glad everyone else got to hear it.
Joe, let's start with you. So they're supportive of the boys being let out, the men. I should call them men now. I think back to the case. I mean, they were so young at the time. I'm referring to them as boys, but they are grown men.
That's correct. And, you know, this whole situation with the Netflix series, with basically all this money and resources behind them to get their names back out in the press, to get the attention of everyone, including, you know, the governor of California, everyone, you know, that is unsettling in a way. And that's one of the things I think Governor Newsom is going to have to weigh. I mean, is it only you do reconsideration for people who have a lot of money and resources, who make their case known in the media again, who get a Netflix series, and then you're going to reconsider their case and perhaps parole them? It just leaves a bad taste in your mouth. So, yes, I mean, you know, sure, they have a lot of supporters. They want to give them a chance on parole. But I think it's a long shot that they're going to get parole. And even if they did, I'm not sure that Governor Newsom is going to approve that.
David, final thoughts.
Final thoughts. I mean, when I first heard about the motion for resentencing, I said, never going to happen. And surprise number one for me. You know, surprise number two, I hope it's not going to be the parole board because, you know, while the parole board does have an opportunity to review it, the parole board does not have to recommend release. And that will be the first parole hit, too, in this particular, these defendants. So I just wonder next step. I've been surprised once. Let's see if we're going to be surprised again.
Yeah, we'll have to see. Gentlemen, thank you. Joe, I believe you're done with us for this morning. Have a good weekend. And David, I think you're sticking around with us. So we're going to come back. We're going to cover more news and topics that are taking place this morning and coming up next.
You look like that when you put them in the bathtub?
Child killer Shanda Vander Ark due in court in just a couple of hours. Will she be granted a new trial?
Next week.
Join us each morning to get trial ready for the day's proceedings. Plus, deeper dives into true crime stories with our daily spotlight.
Opening statements with Julie Grant. Mornings starting at 8/7 Central on Court TV.
Two parents face a jury
over the attempted murder of their own daughter. Court TV takes you inside the trial that's torn a family apart.
The attempted honor killing trial. Live coverage continues Monday morning only on Court TV.
People of the state of Michigan versus Shanda Vander Ark, count 1, charging open murder involving the death of Timothy Ferguson. We find her guilty of first-degree felony murder. Count 2, first-degree child abuse. We find her guilty of first-degree child abuse.
In about 1 hour, convicted child killer Shanda Vander Ark will appear at a hearing via Zoom to argue that she should get a new trial. Vander Ark was convicted in the starvation death of her 15-year-old son, Timothy, who had special needs. At the time of his death, he was 5'8" and weighed only 69 pounds. Vander Ark claims that she was catatonic during the trial and that she received ineffective assistance of counsel from her attorney, Frederick Johnson. Here he is after Vander Ark was found guilty.
I passed the bar in 1986. This is the worst case I've ever handled. It's not even, I've handled cases with serial murders. This is the worst case I've ever handled. You do your job. The facts were terrible. The outcomes were worse. You do your job. You come in there, and your job is to represent this woman and to press for her point of view, and that's what you do. If you do that, and the prosecutor does that, and the jury does their end, and the judge does his end, justice gets done in the end.
Johnson could testify today, along with a social worker that was assigned to the case. So, could his testimony tip the scales? Here to discuss, parenting and family relationship expert Dr. Sue Kornbluth, as well as criminal defense attorney David Bruno. David, I am going to start with you because we're talking about wanting a new trial, and let's kind of review that. So she's going to have to show that the representation by her attorney was deficient and that it somehow prejudiced the outcome of the case. I don't think that this is going to be a successful appeal, but we'll see.
Strickland versus Washington is the standard that you just laid out. And the first one is, did the defense attorney, was his performance or his advocacy at a level below reasonableness, objective reasonableness? That's first. Because he's going to get on the stands, and obviously he probably has explanations tactically and strategically as to how he made particular decisions both pre-trial and during the trial. Also, she testified. She was on the stand. She tried to articulate that the things that she did or lack thereof was for his safety. I mean, so she put her mindset, her catatonic state at issue 2. That's number one. And then number 2 is, even if there was a performance that was below the standard, did it make a difference? Was it the reason that she was convicted, and but for that would she have been acquitted? And that's not happening on either prong, if you ask me, especially because she testified. And when we talk about competency, she's saying she wasn't competent. Competency is a low standard too. That's that you can't understand what's going on, who the judge is, who the prosecutor is, what the roles are. And you cannot help with your attorney through the case. And again, she testified. She clearly understood it. She understood the rules of evidence, when objections were sustained and overruled, and followed all those rules. So I can't see her rising to a level of incompetency after this trial, given what we've seen already.
And Dr. Sue, she did take the stand. Why don't we go ahead and play that little clip, and then I'm going to ask you about it on the other side.
You testified that you gave Timothy a warm bath the night before he passed away, that last night, July 5th. Do you recall that?
Yes, sir.
This is hours before he dies, right?
Yes, sir.
You look like that when you put him in the bathtub?
Vander Ark, do we have a trash can? I did. I placed a trash can. Yeah, I see. All right. Would you like the jury removed? Right. Please rise.
And Dr. Sue, in addition to arguing ineffective assistance of counsel, she's also going to be arguing, as David was saying, that she was not competent at the time, although she was found competent to stand trial. What's your takeaway when you take a look at her being on the stand?
Well, I have to say a few things. First of all, in my opinion, what she's doing to try to get a new trial is just another manipulative technique that she's using. I mean, what kind of lawyer would want to take this case to begin with? But he did, and he did a fabulous job. What we just saw on that stand, which I said many months ago when I saw it, is the same thing. That was a theatrical performance, in my opinion, to get sympathy from the jury, and it failed. And furthermore, you're right. She was given a mental health evaluation, and she passed it. So she was competent. To me, she is a pathological liar. And by the way, Kelly, she was shown those pictures outside of the courtroom before that. I had heard an interview, and she was stoic and had no response like she did in the courtroom when, in my opinion, was fake vomiting to get attention. I don't think she's getting anything today except going back to jail.
Yeah, I don't think so. And David, just from the legal standpoint, this is something that we often see. I know, kind of not really switching gears, still talking about this case, but, you know, there were some families that were not happy about the plea agreement in Kohberger. But what happens then is then you can get appeal after appeal after appeal. Now, Kohberger could still appeal if there was an error in the plea bargain and a few other avenues there. But, you know, we have a situation here where now we're starting with the appeals for this woman who terribly abused her son. This trial was extremely hard to watch. But, yeah, the appeals are beginning.
Yeah, in Kohberger, by the way, in the plea agreement, he waived his right to appeal, which is one of the finality points that I think a lot of the victims' families were able to go with. Not everybody was on board with that plea, by the way. But on this particular one, yes, they have these rights. I mean, they have the right for ineffective assistance of counsel. And it doesn't always go to trial like we're seeing here. Sometimes like in New Jersey, there has to be a prima facie a case stated first. There's a burden that has to be met before you get to the hearing, because today is a hearing. The defense attorney is coming on the stand to testify as to those tactical and strategic decisions that oftentimes maybe could be argued as ineffective until the attorney is able to explain the reasons for what they did in the pretrial hearings and during the trial. So yes, the defendants do have rights, and she has these rights, but I don't see this going anywhere, especially given the fact that she testified. She's saying she was incompetent back then. She testified. We have that record. We saw that she was able to follow the rules of evidence, answer appropriately, just in that little clip that we saw about yes and no from the prosecutor's questions.
And David, even though I know we just were talking about Kohberger waiving his right to an appeal by accepting this plea agreement, there still is a small avenue, and the judge talked with him about that he could still appeal. He'd have to talk with counsel about that. But yes, he did waive his right to an appeal, unless there's something else. But Dr. Sue, I'm going to give you your final thoughts, still talking about this case today, Shanda Vander Ark, and just what more we're going to see from her.
Probably a lot more antics, a lot more lying. Probably her facial expressions will try to get empathy and sympathy, but it's not going to work. She is a cold-blooded abuser. That's my opinion. And what she did to her son was devastating.
It was absolutely devastating. David and Dr. Sue, thank you so much for joining us this hour. Appreciate you being with us. Have a great weekend.